One morning, he found a barefoot, wounded woman in his backyard. She had no name, no explanation. The only words she spoke were, "Please, don't send me away." In that moment, neither the woman knew her past, nor the man his future, but both felt something had begun. And this wasn't just a random encounter, it was fate's quiet plan. As the night neared its end, the sky was still stretched out like a dark blue curtain. The howling wind slipped through the broken fence, cutting through the silence of abandonment. Lucas had woken up a little past 6 in the morning. The water pipe had burst again, and the dripping onto the kitchen floor had ruined his peace. There had been no hot water for 3 days, so while getting his son Leo ready for school, he had to make do with cold water. As he rubbed the boy's shivering shoulders with a towel, he kept repeating the same words to himself. This day won't pass either. But it has to. Calling it a house was a stretch. Lucas's place was a rotting wooden structure, with 2 big holes in the roof and electricity that cut off regularly after midnight. But inside, there was love. And for now, that was enough for Leo. The little boy sat on his chair, holding a cracked piece of toast, and turned to ask his father, "Do I have to wait for you after school again today?" Lucas smiled, a little crushed inside. "No, Leo. I'll be there early today. I promise." But Lucas had already learned how heavy a promise could be. That day, after breakfast, he decided to walk out to the pile of junk behind the house. He was going to try fixing the old generator. When he turned the corner of the shed with a rusty pair of pliers in hand, his heart nearly jumped out of his chest. Because in the grass, curled up behind the old fuel cans, was a silhouette. Small, slender, and still. Lucas instinctively stepped back. Then he slowly moved closer. In the moonlight, he saw her pale skin, a barefoot woman lying on the ground. She was wearing an expensive-looking but completely torn pantsuit. Her face was covered in mud, yet she still carried an air of grace. Her hair was a mess, and in one hand, she clutched a small bag so tightly, it was as if her life was inside it. Lucas leaned down and gently called out, Hey, are you okay?" The woman suddenly opened her eyes. They were green, but not just any green, deep and alert, like they'd shot out from a forest that had been silent for years. She pulled back, clutching her bag even tighter. Please don't send me away. I don't want to go," she whispered. Lucas hesitated for a moment. In this world, no one just calmly approaches a stranger found in their backyard, especially not a man with nothing to his name. But something stirred inside Lucas in that moment. It wasn't just desperation he saw in her eyes. There was dignity, something broken, but still standing strong. "There's not much in my house," Lucas said, "but I've got a heater and some coffee." The woman looked at him in surprise. Lucas took off his old sweatshirt and offered it to her. "What's your name?" She gently lowered her head. "Isabel." From that moment on, everything changed. When Lucas brought Isabel inside, Leo peeked his head out from the hallway. "Who's that?" Lucas replied. "A traveler." Leo tilted his head and looked closely. Travelers usually wear shoes. "She doesn't have any." Isabel chuckled softly, but her eyes didn't smile. Lucas gestured to his son. "That's enough, Leo. Our guest is tired." Isabel sat on the couch, but didn't let go of her bag. Her fingers were still wrapped around it firmly. As Lucas walked into the kitchen, he heard the woman whisper, "Just one day, then I'll go." But the next morning, Isabel was still there. And Lucas didn't know yet. That bag didn't just hold a few clothes, it held the key to a fortune. The woman hadn't just gotten lost. She was running from someone. And Lucas's old broken-down shack was no longer just a shelter. It was about to become a target. Before Lucas even woke up that morning, he noticed something. Silence no longer brought peace. Because someone else was in the house. And that person hadn't just come physically. She had brought with her a mystery that seeped into the walls. Isabel was sitting in the kitchen, quiet, just sitting. Her hands were wrapped around a cup, her head bowed. When Lucas walked up to her, she smiled, but it was the kind of smile people give when their mind is somewhere else. Even while she smiled, there was a storm on her face. "Isabel," Lucas said as he moved toward the kettle, "you're still here. If you're not planning on leaving, I need to at least know why you're here." The woman didn't answer. She just glanced at her bag briefly. That moment, Lucas made a decision. No matter what, he wouldn't go through that bag. Because hearing her story required trust, not pressure, but a bond that could only be built over time. At that moment, Leo had woken up and come into the living room in his pajamas. When he saw Isabel, he rubbed his eyes and smiled. "Is there breakfast? Are you staying with us?" The woman lowered her head, hesitated, then mumbled softly, "A little longer." Lucas had to go to work. He was going to fix a leaky faucet at an elderly woman's house in the neighborhood. He turned to Isabel and said, "There's no security chain, but don't go out through the back door. I'll pick up Leo from school. If anything urgent happens, just call this number," handing her a small note. Isabel took the note and nodded. But as Lucas walked out the door, he turned to look at her one more time. In the woman's eyes, a mix of loneliness and resolve shimmered. This house was more than just a temporary stop for her. Maybe for the first time in years, she was alone with a feeling of safety. Later in the day, while Lucas was working at the elderly woman's home, he received a text from an unknown number. "Keep that woman away. We know where she is." The screwdriver fell from his hands. His throat went dry. He didn't reply. He looked around, then pulled out an old business card from his bag. It said Dunmere Capital. He remembered. He had seen that company name on a file in Isabel's bag. From that moment on, everything started to change. Lucas finished the repair and rushed to pick up Leo from school. On the way home, a voice in his head kept talking. Who is this woman? Who is she running from? And why are people sending threats to find her? Leo sat in the back seat, innocently chatting, reciting silly rhymes he'd learned at school. But Lucas's mind was elsewhere, deep in Isabel's past. The darkness he had seen in her eyes wasn't just ordinary trauma. It was deeper, organized, and something much, much bigger. When they got home, Isabel opened the door. She was holding a cloth, cleaning the kitchen cabinets. As Lucas stepped inside, the air between them suddenly thickened. "Someone sent a message," Lucas said directly. "They found you." Isabel's hands froze. The cloth dropped to the floor. "What did it say?" she asked. Lucas showed her the phone. The woman didn't even look at the screen. "They want me back," she said. "But you won't understand why. Do you want me to try?" Isabel thought for a moment. Then she walked to her bag in the corner of the kitchen and opened it. She pulled out a black folder and handed it to Lucas. "Documents I signed, things that were sold. But without realizing it, I was the one sold, Lucas. The very company I built was turned against me. That bag doesn't just hold papers. It holds my freedom." Lucas took the folder in his hands, but didn't open it. "Keep it safe," he said. "But know this. You're staying in a home where no one can take you from yourself. No matter what happens, as Leo's father, I'll keep you safe here." That night, Isabel didn't speak another word. But around dawn, Lucas woke up to a noise. The house was silent, but someone was outside. In the moonlight, two shadows appeared in the backyard. One stood by the fence, the other crouched down to search through the grass. Lucas pulled the curtain back slightly to look. His heart began to pound loudly, because the man standing by the fence was holding a photograph. And in that photo was Isabel's face. And the man whispered something under his breath. "Found you." Lucas woke up just before dawn, cold sweat dripping down his face. The first thing he did was run to Leo's room. His son was still sound asleep, wrapped in his blanket, tiny fists resting on his pillow. The panic inside Lucas eased for a brief moment, but only for a few seconds. Because someone had been outside. Those two men he had seen. By morning, they'd left no trace, no sound. But Lucas felt their absence like the cold stare of a hunter who'd just lost his prey. In the kitchen, Isabel was making coffee, acting as if nothing had happened. But Lucas could see it in the dark circles under her eyes. In her trembling hands, her peace had hidden itself away somewhere during the night. "I saw someone last night," Lucas said quietly. Isabel's hand froze. The coffee cup clinked. "They were here, weren't they?" she asked. "Yes. One of them was holding your photo. And he said he found you." Isabel was silent for a moment. Then, for the first time, she looked Lucas in the eye without fear and spoke. "If you don't want me here, I can leave right now." Lucas shook his head. "The only people who want you gone are the ones who are afraid of you. I don't know what you did, but I don't care what you are. For Leo, for this home, if you want to stay, you stay." The woman didn't look away. "I want to stay, but I need to tell you something." When they sat down, Isabel told her story. At just 23 years old, she had turned down 3 graduation scholarships to start her first startup. Within 4 years, it had grown into a $1 million finance firm. But the real danger wasn't success, it was the partners. On paper, she had full control. But behind the scenes, they had slowly pushed her out of the system. By the time I realized, it was too late. They were about to take everything I owned. When I reviewed the contracts, I saw it my company was no longer mine. Lucas asked, "So what's in the folder?" "The one document I didn't sign. If I had, they wouldn't just ruin me financially, they would silence me legally too. So I ran. I left behind my ID, my cards, even my phone. I only took that document because it's the last proof of what they did to me." Lucas leaned back, thinking, but the danger waiting outside wasn't thinking. It was closing in. Later that day, when Leo came home from school, he immediately sensed the tension in the air. "Did something happen, Dad?" Lucas smiled, but there was tension on his face. "Sometimes life gets a little messy, son, but there's always a way to make it right." That evening, after Leo went to bed, Lucas stared out the window. For a moment, a pair of car headlights flashed across the yard. Then darkness returned. From behind, Isabel's voice came, "I won't lie to you. The people looking for me, they don't just want to take me back. They want me silent. Because if the truth comes out, it's not just about financial fraud. It's about the collapse of a system that destroyed lives." Lucas turned around and took Isabel's hand. "And what happens if you keep staying here? Maybe at first, they'll just watch me. But then, they'll start threatening you. Even Leo." Lucas narrowed his eyes. "Then we fight." After midnight, there was another sound outside the house. This time, someone jumped over the fence. Lucas was waiting by the window, holding a rusty hammer that had belonged to his mother. But at that moment, Isabel stepped forward. Before unlocking the door, she turned to Lucas. "Let me. This person is from my past, but he's not the enemy." The door opened. There was no greeting, just silence. Standing at the door was a tired but determined-looking man. He wore a dark jacket and held a small USB drive in his hand. He spoke. "My name is Marco. I'm Isabel's former accountant. And now, I'm on your side. Because they tried to silence me too." Lucas looked over at Isabel. "The story's changing now, isn't it?" Isabel nodded. "No. Now the war begins." With Marco's arrival, the atmosphere in the house had completely changed. This was no longer just the story of a woman on the run. It had become the waiting room for people who would witness the collapse of an entire system. Isabel didn't speak for a while. She just held the USB drive Marco had brought, turning it over in her hands. Lucas didn't know what was on it either, but Marco had said, "It's not just your freedom. It's the freedom of many others." Lucas watched Marco closely. His instincts were sharp. For years, he didn't need job interviews to tell if someone was honest. He could read it in their eyes. And Marco, at that moment, looked honest. But he also looked scared. Eventually, Isabel spoke. "What's in these files?" "Proof that the company laundered money, illegal investment schemes, and transactions done with forged signatures, yours among them. A lot. Them wanting to silence you isn't just personal. It's systematic." Lucas voiced the first thought that came to mind. "What about us? Leo? This house? Are we targets now?" Marco lowered his head. "Most likely, yes." That night, after Leo had gone to bed, Isabel and Lucas sat in silence on the couch for hours, planning. Running was an option, but Isabel didn't want to run anymore. She wasn't just hiding now, she was resisting. Lucas wanted to protect his son, but a voice inside told him that by standing with Isabel, he wouldn't just be saving a woman, he'd be saving his past and his own sense of honor. "There was once a man who helped me," Isabel said. "I was little. My mom was on her deathbed. That man was a paramedic. He sat with us for hours. We never even asked his name. But after he left, my mom said, 'Good people don't seek battles, but the ground they stand on becomes the battlefield.' That man was you, Lucas. Now it's my turn." Lucas's eyes welled up, but he didn't cry, because now wasn't the time for tears. It was time to stand and to fight. The next morning, Leo's school bus was late. Maybe that wasn't unusual, but Lucas's instincts no longer allowed for ordinary. He grabbed his phone and called the school. The secretary's voice sounded strange. "Are you saying Leo wasn't picked up? He was picked up an hour ago. We had a signed permission slip." "Who picked him up?" "The document had your signature. The name was, let me remember, Stefan Ruiz." Lucas's hand began to shake. He didn't recognize the name, but Isabel did. Her eyes widened in terror. "That man. He's one of the former partners. Head of Ruiz Holdings. The one who made aggressive offers, then threatened to bankrupt me. They took Leo." Silence fell. Tension, like a drawn bowstring, was ready to snap. Lucas jumped to his feet. Where would they go? Marco pulled out a second phone from his pocket. We use this one only to monitor. It has GPS inside. If I had to guess, they'll want to trade Leo for Isabel's documents. Lucas's heart was shattering. A child? How could they use a child in this game? Isabel's voice cracked for the first time. Because of me. Leo. Lucas stepped toward her, grabbed her shoulders. Not because of you. This is their filth. And our response will be clear. Marco showed the GPS signal. The location pointed to an old warehouse outside the city. Lucas didn't even think. He grabbed his jacket. Isabel wanted to go, but Lucas stopped her. I'll bring Leo back. But you stay here. With those files. If I don't come back, you know what to do. Isabel had never seen him so strong. As Lucas started the car, his hands trembled. But he gripped the wheel tightly. Because now, he wasn't just going to rescue his son. He was going to save everything that made life worth living. And one thought echoed in his mind. Leo gave me life. Now it's time to get his back. As Lucas's car turned onto the dusty road with the first light of morning, his headlights barely cut through the foggy view ahead. His hands still trembled as they gripped the wheel, but his eyes were steady. Going there was a test in every sense. It wasn't just about getting Leo back, it meant walking straight into the courage he'd avoided for years. When he arrived at the warehouse, everything was still quiet outside. But to Lucas, silence had never meant safety. He parked his car a few hundred meters away, checked his phone again. The GPS signal was steady, they were still inside. As he approached, the first thing he noticed was the black SUV next to the giant metal door. Its windows were tinted, the engine still warm. Lucas held his breath and began to search for an angle from which he could see inside. Then a voice rang out from within. Is the file here? He didn't recognize the voice, but the response pierced straight through his chest. My dad's going to find you. It was Leo. Time froze in that moment. Lucas wanted to charge in, forget everything. But he waited. He had no idea how many people were inside. One wrong move, and he could put Leo in danger. Then, he noticed a small service door in the back. Quietly, he made his way over. The door was slightly ajar. As he slipped inside, the first thing he saw was Leo, sitting in a chair but not tied up. In front of him stood two men. One was broad-shouldered and dressed in black. The other wore a suit, a sly smile on his face. Lucas recognized the man in the suit. The one Isabel had spoken of, Stefan Ruiz. Ruiz held a phone in his hand, video calling Isabel. Give me the documents, Isabel, or you'll hear how loudly this little boy can scream. Everything inside Lucas went silent. No fear, no hesitation, just action. He tightened his grip on a key in his hand, slammed it against a pipe on the wall to make a loud noise. As all attention turned toward the sound, Lucas leapt in. The first man lunged at him, but Lucas was ready. One swift knee strike brought him to the ground. Then Lucas turned to Ruiz. A man who targets children isn't a man at all. Ruiz pulled out a gun. But just then, the back door opened again. Marco entered, holding a folder of Isabel's documents. Stop, he said. Here it is. But let the boy go. Ruiz smirked. Smart choice. That was when Lucas realized everything. Ruiz didn't care about the folder. He wanted Isabel. He was using Leo to silence her, turning fear into a weapon. But that fear wouldn't work anymore. The file is fake, Lucas said suddenly. Ruiz's eyes widened. What did you say? There's nothing legal in it. Just pages. We kept the real one. Isabel's already moving to release it publicly. Ruiz's hand shook. He raised the gun. But Lucas stepped forward. Go ahead. Shoot me. But if you touch that boy, this won't just be between us. Everyone will know what you've done. A new voice from the doorway changed everything. They already know. It was Isabel. She was holding her phone streaming live. This conversation is being watched by 20,000 people right now. Your voice, your face, everything's on record. If you touch Leo, you're not just going against one woman. You're going against the people. Ruiz stepped back. Drop the gun. You think you've won. But this is only the beginning. Isabel smiled. You're right. It's just beginning for us. Leo ran straight into his father's arms. Lucas's eyes filled with tears. Isabel came over to them. Lucas placed his hand on her back. I'd have given my life not just for a file but for my son. Isabel replied. You already did, Lucas. Now it's my turn. In that moment, no one spoke. Because silence was no longer fear, it was victory. The car was quiet on the way back from the warehouse. Only the hum of the engine echoed through the darkness of the night. In the back seat, Leo was asleep, wrapped in his father's jacket. There was no trace of fear on his face because beside him now was something stronger than fear: trust. Isabel, sitting in the passenger seat, stared out the window as she spoke without turning to Lucas. "I can't even thank you. Because what you did wasn't kindness, it was a miracle." Lucas responded without taking his eyes off the road. "I just got my son back. But I think I found more than that." By the time they got home, it was morning. Exhaustion clung to them, but their hearts no longer felt heavy. Marco had already left, heading off to secure backups of the documents. Ruiz hadn't been arrested, but he now knew that every step he took was being watched. Isabel's live stream had reached millions on social media. They couldn't silence her anymore. That day, for the first time, they had a real breakfast. Isabel made pancakes for Leo. When Lucas walked into the kitchen and saw the scene at the table, he smiled. His son's laughter, the woman's soft giggle, and the way the old silence that once haunted the walls had now turned into warmth. It was all real. Everything had changed. Weeks passed. Isabel didn't leave. She didn't even talk about leaving. Now, she helped Leo with his homework in the mornings, and in the evenings, she organized Lucas's messy invoice book. She planted tomatoes in the garden. She had the old generator repaired. And most importantly, she started staying. In the truest sense. One afternoon, Leo came home from school, excitedly holding a project in his hands. "We got an assignment at school about family." The teacher asked, "What is home?" And I drew a picture. The drawing from his little hands was simple: 3 people, a roof, some vegetables in the yard, and a dog by the fence. Underneath, it read, "My home is the people who found me." Lucas looked away, but Isabel leaned down and kissed Leo's cheeks. "I found you too, Leo. You and your dad. Maybe I was lost, but I'm not anymore." That night, as Lucas and Isabel sat on the porch under a sky full of stars, Lucas broke the silence, holding a cup of tea. "Do you ever think about leaving again?" Isabel gently shook her head. "I don't have anywhere to go anymore. I just have a reason to stay." Lucas looked at her for a long while. "Then this house is yours too now." And so, the house that was once a broken, lonely man's refuge had become a home where laughter grew, where hope was planted, a shelter that stood against the darkness of the past. A man had come to the brink of losing his son and found his true strength. A woman had lost everything and held on to something she never had before: love. And a small boy had drawn the greatest lesson of his life: home isn't a roof, it's people. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you're the first to hear our next story. And most importantly, what would you have done? Share it with us in the comments because every story leaves a mark. Let yours begin here.